Hello and welcome to Treasure in Every Verse. I'm your host, author and Bible teacher Kevin Madison. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, friends. Hey, we started a very short series on current events. And essentially, what we were talking about is this right here. What's happening on God's prophetic clock? So we had walked through Israel, Jerusalem, the church, the tribulation, and we started on the Antichrist. So essentially, where are we on the prophetic calendar? God's prophetic calendar? Right here. We're in the middle of grace. Let me get rid of this. We're in the middle of grace. So if we were to look at where we are as far as, you know, timing is concerned, we're at the very end of this grace period, somewhere in here. In other words, the rapture could happen and everything is in place for the Antichrist to take over. What do I mean by that? Well, the Bible gives us several clues. That is, uh, the world would be in position, men would be in position to destroy the whole world. We have that now. Back before nuclear weapons came into being, before guns came into being and all that stuff, friends, how you going to kill the whole world with bows and arrows and spears and swords? It just wasn't possible. But now you don't even have to take a ship or a submarine and go anywhere. You have these supersonic ballistic missiles that carry nuclear warheads on them, and friend, you can wipe out, you know, you can wipe out a country within a matter of minutes. So that's where we are. Also, communication. The Bible says that everyone was going to see. Watch, let me show you. Let me show you one thing. This is the kind of stuff where when you start seeing these kind of things, and you say, well, how could that be? Guess what, folks? Even in the 60s, this was not possible. So watch, what am I talking about? I'm talking about our two witnesses. Where are they? Right here. Watch. So God says in Revelation chapter 11, excuse me, that there's going to be two witnesses, right? And these two people were going to be witnesses for God in Jerusalem for 42 months. Now watch. He called them the two olive trees, the lampstand, and he goes on. And these folks are going to be doing this stuff, right? They're going to be, you know, preaching the gospel. If anyone wants to harm them, the two witnesses, fire proceeds out of their mouths and devour their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. These have power to shut heaven, that is, stop rain, so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. They have the power over waters to turn them to blood, like Moses did, to strike the earth with all kinds of plagues, like Moses did, as often as they desire. Now, they're going to be led by the Spirit. It won't be them just making up their mind to do things. These are witnesses to God, empowered by God, protected by God to do some things specifically within a 3.5 year period at the end of the tribulation. So, you know what happens? Some people read that and they think they get that kind of power because they're believers too. No, man. No, it doesn't work like that. God has a specific timetable and a specific purpose and plan for these two people. Let me tell you, and what am I saying? Because, folks, I've run across people. Remember in the book of Acts where Paul had some old clothes and they cut his old clothes and made little sort of handkerchiefs out of them and they put oil on them. Now, the Spirit of God told Paul to do that. And the people took these and they brought them around for the sole purpose of healing people. Paul was an apostle to the Gentiles. That was one of the signs that he truly was an apostle. Listen, toward the end of Paul's ministry, he lost that ability. You see, what do you mean he lost that ability? By the time Paul started writing to Timothy and to um, Philemon and to Titus, you know what he was saying? I left this person sick. I left that person sick. God didn't take him, in his sickness so that I won't have too much sorrow. What does that mean? That means Paul, at the end of his ministry, didn't have the apostle ability to heal people. Why? Because the gospel had gone out. The epistles, the scriptures had gone out. Therefore, God didn't need that anymore. The foundation was laid. So even the apostle Paul, at the end of his ministry, didn't have the ability to just heal people like he did in the beginning. Now, so what am I saying? Don't try to copycat stuff in the Bible of people doing certain things. Remember, God is working on a specific plan, a specific purpose. Paul and all those gentlemen in prophets and apostles that you see in the first century church, they had no New Testament scriptures. We do. Okay. So these guys get to the end of their ministries. Now, watch what happened. Watch what happened. And you tell me whether this could have happened in 1920. Look at this. When the two witnesses, finish their testimony. Now, look, they have to finish it. The beast, the antichrist, that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against these two. He will overcome them, and the beast will finally be able to kill them, but not until they finish doing everything God wanted them to do. And their dead bodies, look, will lie in the street of the great city, Jerusalem, which is spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. What in the world? Why is it called Sodom and Egypt? Because of all the wicked types of sins that was being done in it. That's what God is talking about. Where also the Lord was crucified. Now, obviously, he's talking about Jerusalem. Then those people, now listen, those peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will all see their dead bodies. 3.5 days. Could that have happened in 1920 before the invention of television? No. Could that happen in the 1960s before the invention of the internet? No. Today it can. This is telltale evidence that let me finish reading. Watch this. They didn't allow their dead bodies to be put in the grave. And these earth dwellers, those who dwell on the earth, where are the believers? According to Colossians and Philippians and Romans and Ephesians, we are seated with Christ in heavenly places. We are pilgrims and strangers on the earth. Jesus said, they are not of the world because I am not of the world. This is a totally different group of people. Why? Because they are earth dwellers. They will rejoice over them and make merry. Listen, they send gifts to one another. That is worldwide commerce. You get on the internet, on some site like Amazon, you buy something to somebody, you don't ship it, Amazon ship it from that country and get it to them in a couple of days. Friend, the only time this was ever possible is today. I'll show you one more thing. Watch this. So the Antichrist pops on the scene in Revelation 13. Now we're going to come back to this later, so I don't want to read much of this, but I will come here. And he says, listen, this is the false prophet is the one doing this. So this false prophet start doing great signs, and he's doing that for Israel. So that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in sight of men. So folks, this is what I'm telling you. Be prepared for some demonic activity in the near future. Why? Because the closer you get to this, the more you have these false demonic people doing these crazy miracles. Not the kind that this guy is doing, but just any kind of miracles. They're going to be from demons and deceiving people. He deceives those who dwell on the earth. Who do he deceive? He deceives those who dwell on the earth. Do he deceive the believers? No, no. Why not? Because they have the Holy Spirit. By those signs which he had granted to do in the sight, he was granted by God to do in the sight of the beast, telling those on the earth to make a image of the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the beast to be killed. So, friend, listen, if you're going to wait until the tribulation and end up getting saved in, you're going to die. He calls us all. How many? All except those that's going to believe. All the earth dwellers, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand, or on their foreheads, that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now listen, the mark is not a physical mark. See, how do you know that? Well, there's examples in the Bible. The best example in the Bible is over in the book of Ezekiel. I think it's chapter 9 or chapter 11 that talks about this kind of mark being given by God to believers. No, not the 666, but a mark, a spiritual mark. What does that mean? It's an allegiance to your God. So even today, you got places where you can go and you can put your hand out and it reads the palm of your hand. You say, oh, then that's the mark. No. You can go in the airport now and it reads your face, facial recognition. You say, oh, well, that's the mark. No, that's not the mark. What's the mark? Your allegiance to participate in this. Listen, friend, it won't be some secret. And it won't be something that says 666. That's ridiculous. What is it going to be? It's going to be your willingness to participate. Here it is right here. God, listen, the Bible is extremely simple. You just have to slow down and read it exactly the way it's written. Let's read it again. He, the false prophet, that's the he, not the Antichrist. This is the false prophet. He causes something. So who's leading this? The false prophet. He calls small and great, rich and poor, free and slave to receive a mark. And you got to have this mark on your right hand, on your forehead. If you want to participate, how do I know that? Because he says that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark. That means you get a choice. You get a choice. So you say the mark is the actual participation in the beast system. It's an invisible spiritual mark. Let me show you the example. God does, he's copying what God did over in the book of Ezekiel. It's the exact same thing that God did. Right here, I believe. Yes, right here. All right. Ezekiel chapter 9. Now, folks, if you never read this, and we're about to see this mark. What is this mark? Pay attention. Then he, who's the he? The he here is Christ. God called out in my hearing, Ezekiel is hearing, with a loud voice saying, let those angels, there are angels who have charge over the city. What city? Jerusalem. God has given some angels charge over Jerusalem. What angels did he give that to? Daniel tells us who gave it to. He gave it to Michael. Michael and Michael's angels, the ones that followed Michael in that particular army. So you don't have to guess that these are angels. Remember, this is God talking. So this is all happening in the spirit realm, invisible realm. But Ezekiel can see it and hear it. So the city is Jerusalem. Let them draw near to God. So God is calling them in to tell them, give them some instructions. Look at what he says. Each one of these angels have a deadly weapon in his hand. A deadly weapon. He has a sword. See, what in the world would an angel be doing with a sword? Listen, the participants in the spirit realm can physically participate in the physical realm, but the people who are born into the physical realm cannot participate unless God allows them in the spiritual realm. An angel can show up as a man and kill you if God says he can. And suddenly, 6 men, were they men? No, they were not men. They were angels. 6 angels came from the direction of the upper gate. Now, what is the upper gate? It's the gate of the temple in Jerusalem. One of the gates was called the upper gate. Remember, they had the sheep gate. They had the east gate. They have a bunch of gates, which faces the north, each with a battle axe. A battle axe? Yeah, a sword. That's the deadly weapon in his hand. One man, one angel. What about it? Among them, he had on a different set of clothes. He was clothed not with battle attire and a battle axe. He had on clothes, listen, with linen, and he had a writer's inkhorn. What in the world is that? Back in those days, what did they used to write on? Papyrus. How they used to write it? They used to have a bag of ink and they used to dip a pen in the ink. That's what he's talking about. That's what he had. Now, watch this. He had it on his side. They, the angels, went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now, where is the bronze altar? And for most of you, or some of you, what in the world is a bronze altar? This right here, where they did the sacrifices. So there's your bronze altar. So where were now they were in the temple and not this tabernacle, but it's similar. It was in a similar place. So where were they? They were in Jerusalem, in the temple, in this part of the temple. That's where they were. Let's go back. Okay. So they're standing there. So you got 6 angels standing there with God. 5 of them had a sword in their hands, dressed for battle. Excuse me. And the other one had an ink, clothes with linen, with an ink bag and a pen.